Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, May 26th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gen. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea has announced plans to give incentives to vaccinated people. These include measures allowing people who got their first vaccine dose to travel outdoors without masks beginning July. The United States is set to reach a new milestone in its fight against COVID-19 as 50% of all American adults have been fully vaccinated. And President Moon Jae-in will hold a meeting in the coming hour with the leaders of the 5 biggest parties, seeking support to implement the deals reached at his summit with President Biden. Our top story this morning: to encourage people to get vaccinated, the South Korean government will offer some incentives, even if they have only received their first dose of the vaccine. For details, we have our Kim Dami on the line for us. Dami, tell us more details.
Mo-gen, starting next Tuesday, those who have been fully vaccinated will have much more freedom in their daily lives. That includes removing restrictions on gatherings with immediate family members. Let's take a listen.
Those who have completed the first dose of the vaccine will be exempt from the restrictions on gatherings of immediate family members. Gatherings and activities at senior centers and community centers will be held much more freely.
The so-called vaccine incentives come as the government is encouraging people to get the jabs to speed up the country's inoculation process. Plus, starting July 1st, people who have gotten even just one vaccine dose will not be required to wear masks in some outdoor areas like parks and trails. They will also be exempt from restrictions on the number of attendees at some facilities as well as at religious gatherings. And those who have received 2 shots will be exempt from attendance limits at private meetings, restaurants, cafes, and weddings. The Prime Minister said all these incentives will be reevaluated after the end of September, when over 70% of the population is expected to have completed the first dose of vaccination. That's when the need to wear masks indoors could be reconsidered.
Now, Tammy, as of now, 7.5% of the population have received their first dose of the vaccine, but the country's inoculation program will start to pick up from Thursday. Who's eligible?
So the first dose of vaccinations will begin for those aged between 65 and 74, as well as those with critical respiratory symptoms. Now, with a broader range of vaccine eligibility and more vaccine shots secured, the government is confident it can inoculate over 1 million people a day. So starting Thursday, over 5.1 million people will be able to get their jobs at almost 13,000 designated medical centers across the country. On top of over 3 million doses of AZ shots secured in the country, an additional 5.5 million doses will be ready by the first week of next month. And now, with cluster infections continuing to pop up across the country, South Korea has added 707 new COVID-19 cases earlier this morning. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Mo-gen.
Thank you for the update, Tammy. Now, alongside the government's incentives, local travel and hotel industries are also seeking to drum up business by providing incentives to those who've been vaccinated. Our Peunji tells us more.
Chefs at this hotel buffet are busy preparing food for the guests. This hotel in Seoul has come up with a new promotion offering 50% discounts on its buffet for people who've been vaccinated against COVID-19. This includes guests who have only received their first dose of the vaccine, and the hotel is getting a lot of reservations.
At the moment, we have an overwhelming response from guests, and May bookings are mostly fully booked, and June onwards we still have some availability, but we're getting a lot of inquiries.
It is also currently reviewing other promotions such as discounts on guest rooms. Travel businesses have been among the hardest hit during the pandemic. But as the South Korean government has lifted the 2-week quarantine rule for fully vaccinated residents who return from overseas travel, a group travel company is now taking reservations for tours abroad. Reservations for group tours to Hawaii, Switzerland, the Maldives, and Dubai, scheduled to depart as early as June, are open on the company's website. Even if traveling becomes impossible because of COVID-19, there is no cancellation fee.
For travel agencies like us, we have no choice but to keep on offering this kind of tour. We plan on offering more of these to group vacationers, as this helps us prepare for overseas travel once it resumes.
Within this week, the government will also announce a vaccine incentive program to encourage citizens to get their vaccine. The government is currently discussing whether to exempt fully vaccinated people from gathering bands of 5 or more people, as well as ease limits on the operating hours of businesses once the owner is fully vaccinated. It is also considering easing restrictions on movie theaters, concert halls, and sports venues for immunized people. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea announced new measures to make sure vaccines don't go to waste. From Thursday, people will be able to sign up to get the leftover doses. Our Chang Tae-hyun sheds light on who's eligible and how to make a reservation.
With South Korea ramping up its vaccination program, people will soon be able to reserve and receive a leftover vaccine on the very same day, a vaccine which was reserved for someone else but they didn't show up.
Starting from this Thursday, we will check the medical facilities which have leftover AstraZeneca vaccines and give them to people on the same day. Reservation can be made through the Naver and Kakao mobile phone applications.
Starting at 1 p.m. on Thursday, medical facilities with leftover vaccines will upload the necessary information to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency's vaccination system. Those wishing to get a leftover vaccine can search which inoculation centers have some using Naver or Kakao. Then after choosing a preferred medical facility, a reservation can be made. It's also possible to receive notifications from up to 5 local medical centers when vaccines become available. But the vaccines are not available to anyone who has already had their first shot or if they're under the age of 30. And anyone who doesn't show up without canceling in advance will not be allowed to receive a surplus vaccine. The second shot will be administered at the same medical facility 11 weeks after the first. After a 2-week trial period, the program will officially start on June 9th. In the meantime, 55,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine will arrive in the country by the end of the month and will be available for use starting in mid-June. The KDCA's Commissioner Jung Eun-kyung says that the nation's regular vaccine sign-up response has been good. On some days this month, as many as 300,000 to 400,000 people have been reserving their shots. Chang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
The White House says it expects the U.S. to reach a new milestone when it comes to COVID-19 vaccinations, as half of all adult Americans have been fully vaccinated. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The United States is set to reach a new milestone in its fight against COVID-19. That milestone, according to the White House, is in regards to the vaccination campaign, with 50% of all American adults having been fully vaccinated. According to White House senior COVID-19 advisor Andy Slavitt, more than 130.6 million Americans were fully vaccinated against COVID-19 as of Tuesday morning. He added that only 1% of Americans were vaccinated when President Biden entered office in January. Despite that, Slavitt appealed to Americans who remain on the fence about getting vaccinated to get the shots. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as of 6 p.m. Monday, 61.5% of American adults had received at least one shot, while 49.8% were fully vaccinated. Overall, 49.4% of U.S. population aged 12 and above have received at least one shot, while 39.3% is fully vaccinated. President Biden said earlier this month that he wanted 160 million American adults to be fully vaccinated by July 4th. With more and more Americans vaccinated, experts believe airline travel in the country will rebound quickly. Recent demand for leisure trips have brought ticket yields to 90% of 2019 levels, with expectations that autumn figures could hit or even exceed 2019 levels. In Europe, EU leaders on Tuesday agreed to donate at least 100 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to poorer countries by the end of the year. Gathering in Brussels for a 2-day summit, the leaders pledged to continue efforts to increase global vaccine production capacities in order to meet global needs. The agreement comes as the EU is now seeing a steady rise in supplies. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in will be holding a meeting in the coming hours with the country's political leaders to discuss his recent trip to the U.S. The Blue House says leaders of the 5 biggest parties will join the luncheon meeting, including the chair of ruling Democratic Party and the acting chair of the main opposition People Power Party. President Moon is expected to call for support to implement the deals reached at his summit with President Biden. South Korea and the U.S. agreed on a vaccine partnership. They also reaffirmed that dialogue and diplomacy is essential for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Now, it's the first time in over a year for President Moon to meet with all the leaders of the rival parties in one place. Later this week, President Moon Jae-in will be attending the summit known as the Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals, or the P4G, which will be held in Seoul. Ahead of the summit, President Moon will hold a virtual meeting with his counterpart from Denmark, which was the host of the first P4G Summit in 2018. Our Blue House correspondent Kim Min-ji reports.
President Moon Jae-in will be taking part in the upcoming P4G Summit, or Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030. The 2-day virtual event from May 30th will be held under the theme of inclusive green recovery toward carbon neutrality.
Since President Moon's inauguration, South Korea has been establishing a foothold as a leading country in tackling climate change for carbon neutrality and a sustainable society. We expect that through the P4G Summit, our companies will be able to secure competitiveness in the low-carbon green growth sector.
Some 60 heads of state and international organizations are expected to take part, including U.S. President Joe Biden. The leaders' dialogue, which Moon will chair, will be held Monday, and the summit will conclude with the adoption of the Seoul Declaration. This will be the first multilateral meeting related to the environment that South Korea has hosted. Seoul has been joining global efforts in response to climate change by unveiling its goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2050 through its Green New Deal initiative. The top office expressed hope that the P4G Summit will serve as a stepping stone for the success of the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in November. In October, ahead of that meeting, South Korea is expected to unveil its enhanced carbon reduction goal, known as the Nationally Determined Contribution, which currently stands at 24.4% reduction from 2017 levels. Ahead of the P4G Summit, President Moon will also hold a virtual bilateral summit with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Denmark was the host of the first P4G Summit in 2018. The two leaders are expected to discuss ways to cooperate for a successful P4G, as well as share views on ways to elevate their decade-old strategic partnership. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea will invest more than $65 billion in green energy projects by 2025. Finance Minister Hong Nam-ki said Tuesday that South Korea is planning to invest 3.8% of its GDP in Green New Deal projects. This includes green infrastructure, renewable energy, and green mobility. South Korea is working toward its goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, transforming the economy to one that's eco-friendly. This year's P4G Summit, which kicks off on Sunday, is primarily focused on tackling climate change. The first warm-up forum was on what local governments can do to help South Korea become carbon neutral. Kim Yeon-sing reports.
2021년 5월 24일 대단히 뜻깊은 날이 될 겁니다. 대한민국 243개 지방정부가 기후 위기 극복을 위한 탄소 중립 실천 의지를 이렇게 함께 모았습니다.
The Dongdaemun Design Plaza on Monday evening hosted the first climate forum leading up to the Seoul Summit for Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals, otherwise known as the P4G Summit, with the session zeroing in on the goal of carbon neutrality. South Korea has set 2050 as its deadline to reach carbon neutrality, where all carbon emissions are cancelled out by the carbon absorbed from the atmosphere. The event started with one of the keynote speakers, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, giving a stark reminder of the seriousness of the climate crisis.
From 1994 to 2017, in just 23 years, glaciers that could cover an area the size of England 100 meters thick have disappeared. In Korea, the natural habitat of the Korean fir tree on Hallasan Mountain and Jisan Mountain is drying up due to climate change.
The Minister of Environment explained how far South Korea has to go to reach carbon neutrality.
South Korea emitted 730 million tons of carbon in 2018. We have to decrease emissions by 24 million tons every year for 30 years. That's like decreasing it by about 15 million cars.
The minister says carbon neutrality cannot be reached without the help of local governments.
A big change is not possible without the help of local governments. They're in charge of reducing carbon in transportation, buildings, and aspects close to our day-to-day life.
So on Monday, more than 240 local governments signed off their will to participate, and they had time to discuss how their local regions will strive to achieve this goal.
Due to COVID-19, many local government leaders had to join the forum remotely. But from cutting down on coal to building electric-powered transport, there was no shortage of ideas here on how to build an eco-friendly future. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Business sentiment among South Korean companies remained flat in May. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, its business sentiment index for all industries stood at 88 points, the same as April. A reading below 100 indicates pessimists outnumber optimists. By sector, BSI among manufacturers stayed unchanged at 96 points, but BSI among non-manufacturing businesses edged down 1 point to 81. The business outlook for June is slightly more pessimistic. Outlook among manufacturers and non-manufacturers were both down 1 point at 97 and 81, respectively. On May 26th, tonight, for those in South Korea, skywatchers will be able to enjoy a special cosmic 3-for-1 deal, a super blue blood moon. Half of the world will witness 3 rare events for the first time in 3 years: a lunar eclipse, a supermoon, and a blue moon. The blue blood moon combines a supermoon, which is full moon that is at its closest to the Earth, a blue moon, the second full moon of the month, and a lunar eclipse, a phenomenon that occurs when the Earth casts a shadow over the moon. In South Korea, you can catch the super blue blood moon at around 8:09 p.m. The show will also be live streamed on the National Science Museum's YouTube channel.
Welcome. It's time for The World Now, bringing you some of the most interesting news from around the globe. I'm Ji-young. Individuals in Lithuania are now able to prove their vaccine or COVID status as the country's national digital COVID-19 immunity certificate has come into force. Called Freedom ID, it's helping people return to pre-pandemic activities ranging from concerts, sports events, indoor dining, and even international travel.
There are 3 components. First, it's information about your vaccination if you're already vaccinated. Then about immunity if you got COVID previously. And third, a negative test result.
She added that Lithuania is providing instant testing free of charge to ensure equal rights for everybody. The minister also said it should encourage Lithuanians to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The Freedom ID consists of a QR code that can be instantly scanned to show the user's status on vaccination, immunity, and testing. The country's government expects that the ID will be combined with the COVID-19 travel certificate proposed by the European Union. Amid the pandemic, students around the world have had to get used to new experiences, including more than a year of Zoom classes. High school students in Bahrain had yet another unique experience under COVID-19 restrictions, receiving their degrees in front of a parking lot full of balloon-filled cars. Cheering inside their cars, parents were grateful that the graduation ceremony went ahead at all.
Our son Zaid Behzad graduated in Jaein's class of 2021. We're very proud of the Jaein school and their organization of this event. Despite all the challenges the pandemic posed, the graduation was fantastic and we had a wonderful time.
Instead of applauding, guests honked their car horns, switched on their windscreen wipers, and flashed their headlights. When receiving graduation certificates on stage, students wore masks and maintained social distance from each other. Like the famous quote by Elton John, "Music has healing power," patients at an end-of-life care home in southern Paris let music carry away their pain. Every Friday, their rooms are filled with the sound of a solo cello.
I'm in permanent pain. The music helps a little to escape from the pain, I think. You pay attention to the music, and if it's a piece you know, you anticipate the next note. There you go. It's like that.
Concert cellist Claire Oppert, who trained at the Moscow Conservatory, makes a trip to the care home once a week to play for residents. Staff at the nursing home say they find the patients in a calm state, at times moved, and at times happy after having heard the music. Oppert have been playing to patients who are struggling with physical pain at the facility for nearly a decade.
Good morning. Another band of rain is in the forecast for Jeju and the south coast from this afternoon before moving towards to the north. So Jeju could see up to 80 millimeters through tomorrow afternoon. So rain could come down heavily on Jeju along with thunder and lightning. Meanwhile, the capital region will see passing showers during the day today, so please keep an umbrella handy. We'll notice a warmer afternoon. Highs in most parts will be 3 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, hovering right around the seasonal averages. But those in Chuncheon will notice a big rise in temperatures from chilly morning lows, topping out at 24 degrees. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide with a few glimpses of sunshine. And it seems like we'll have to wait until the weekend to see some sunny skies, as on and off rain will continue for the remainder of the week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. Thank you for watching.